Hi guys! Recently I had the chance to be interviewed for an article, and the last question that they asked me was if you could give young people advice who are entering the job market or trying to make a career move, what would it be? And my answer was blossom where you're planted, because I've wasted so much time thinking about my next city or my next job or my next plan or my next move. And sometimes for us, if we're honest, it's not even about what's next, it's about like entire seasons of life. Sometimes we're sitting there and we're like, oh, life is going to be so great when I get married, or oh, we have our baby, our family's going to be so cute. And I want to make sure I say this, there is nothing wrong with dreaming. In fact, in this time right now, God is doing some major things for people who will believe him for something huge and something that's beyond their own reach. However, there is something wrong if you can't enjoy where you are right now because you're just so obsessed with what's going to be. Recently, I've had the chance to just be around a lot of moms and see their interaction with their kids, and I've noticed a couple of things. Number one, moms rock. Number two, their lives are really challenging. And number three, I'm not ready for that. And it was a sobering moment, and one of the only moments that I've had in the time that I've been married where I realized, my husband and I can do what we want to do. We can go where we want to go, and we don't need a babysitter to do it. And I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer to parents, because obviously children are a blessing from the Lord, and there's a sobering moment for you as well. It's realizing that a cute little baby that you hold and you feed and you give everything it needs, in a couple of years they're going to be like, can you please put me down? Like, I don't need you. I can walk on my own. Or in a couple of years after that, they're going to say, can you drop me off down the street? Because kids disown their parents, because we did it, and it's so crazy. And for the singles, I had a conversation with one of my girlfriends recently, and she just came into some money, which is awesome. But, she was like, man, if I was married, I'd have to consult with my husband about how I'm going to spend this. I would have to put it into our joint account, and I may end up paying bills that aren't even really mine, because when you get married, you're one. So, it's just about realizing that every job that you're going to take, or every new season of your life, or that next move that you make, it's going to come with its own sets of challenges, and it's so much easier to handle those when you look back that you did everything you wanted to do in that previous season. Where I used to live, there were all these mountains that I said I wanted to climb, there were beaches I said I wanted to go to, and these caverns that I wanted to explore, and I realized I never did any of that stuff. And I wondered why, this week I was like, why didn't I do any of that? It's probably because, while I was there, I was like, I'm only here to jumpstart my career, not going to be here long. And by the time I was like halfway done, I was like, okay, it's time for me to go. It's time for me to plan my exit. And I look back at some of the people that I worked with there, and they thoroughly enjoyed every second of being there. And I was like, man, I don't want to, miss this stage of my life and not enjoy it, and make that mistake all over again. So if you're like me and you've ever done this, or feel like you do this all the time, people ask you how you're doing, and what comes out is something negative about where you are right now, that's not really what believing and dreaming for something is really all about, especially if you're doing it God's way. God's way is, if you've prayed about something, he's going to answer you, so you can have confidence in that. When you call upon him, he answers you and shows you great and mighty things you don't know. That's his word. If you're striving to do everything to do, and you're walking righteously, if you're willing and obedient, you'll eat the good of the land. That's his word too. And as far as inheriting something by faith, inheriting a promise by faith, it's really about speaking the word and believing. And one day it just springs up, like literally, it just plops into your lap. That's how every one of my job testimonies has happened. It's how our marriage happened. It's not about being obsessed with it. It's not about fantasizing about it all day, every day. It's not about, closing yourself off to the experiences that you have right now, or having an attitude or complaining. It just literally pops up because you keep speaking and you keep believing. So, if you're like me, like I said, and you struggled with it before, I challenge you to just find one thing, one thing about your life right now, and focus on that for a day. And the next day, find another thing. That's something that I've been doing recently, and it's really helped, Because if you just take the job for the example, if I look at myself right now, where I am today doesn't even compare to where I was this time last year or this time 5 years ago. You know, you have to realize the progression that you've made, even if it's a small one. Or maybe there is no progression in the jobs, right? But you can find something. You know, right now I'm really far away from my family, and I could sulk and I could be really sad about, you know, where I am. But I had to realize this week, like, I live where it's perpetually summer. That's not where my family lives. Like, go to the beach, you know, go get in the water, go to the ocean. Like, there's something awesome and something beautiful about where you are, and you just have to realize it. Enjoy it.